I didn't notice her at first. Not really. Just a blur of dark hair and linen moving past my window every morning. The kind of person you register but never think you'll speak to. But that changed the day her porch light went out. I was fixing my bike outside, hands slick with grease, when I heard her voice for the first time. Do you know anything about light fixtures? It wasn't the question, it was how she asked it. Calm, but slightly embarrassed. Like she hated needing help. I wiped my hands on a rag and looked up. She stood on her porch in a faded t-shirt and jeans, hair tied loosely, a mug of tea in one hand. She looked like someone who used to have time for herself, but hadn't in a while. Depends, I said. I can try. She tilted her head, studying me, the way people do when they're deciding if you're reliable or just pretending to be. Then she smiled, small but real. Try then. Her name was Clara. She lived 2 doors down, though she might as well have been from another world. Hers quiet, ordered, faintly scented with lavender and old books. She worked from home as a copy editor. Said she liked silence, though her house always played soft music through the walls. Piano, sometimes jazz. I changed the bulb easily enough, though I dragged it out longer than I needed to. She stood nearby, arms crossed, watching like she didn't want to miss a step. When the light flickered on, she exhaled a soft, "Thank you," as if the silence between us had held its breath. "Anytime," I said, though my voice came out lower than I meant. After that, it was small things. She'd wave from her car, or I'd see her standing barefoot on her porch watering plants in the evening. I started timing my trash runs to match hers. Ridiculous, I know. But there was something about her that didn't fit neatly into a category. She wasn't trying to be interesting. She just was. One afternoon it rained hard, the kind of storm that floods gutters and makes the streetlights hum. I'd left my windows open. She knocked on my door, not hard, just enough to make the sound mix with the rain. "Your living room's about to drown," she said, pushing past me before I could answer. She moved like she'd done it 1,000 times, closing windows, tossing me a towel, muttering about how boys never notice the weather until it's in their laps. Her hair was damp, curling at the ends. She smelled faintly of something floral, but not sweet, like clean sheets after sun. When she turned, our eyes met. Close, too close. The sound of rain softened. Her breath hitched. She stepped back first. "You should dry off," she said, voice quieter now. "Yeah," I managed. And just like that, she was gone, the door closing with a careful click. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about that half-second, the one where she didn't move, where I thought maybe she felt it too. It wasn't attraction exactly. It was something heavier, quieter, like recognizing a song you've never heard, but somehow already know. She was just my neighbor. And yet, every time I saw her light switch off through my window, I'd feel it again, that tightness in my chest, that breath I couldn't quite catch. I told myself it was nothing. But the truth is, ever since that day, I haven't been able to breathe right. I told myself I wouldn't look for her again. But habits form quietly, like the way your body remembers a door handle's height or a voice's rhythm. 2 weeks after the rainstorm, I found myself standing outside Clara's gate again. This time, she was struggling with something heavier, a box half her size, awkwardly wedged against her hip. I started. "I've got it," she cut in, but her knee buckled a little as she shifted the weight. I stepped forward anyway, catching the box before it slipped. Our fingers brushed, her hand cold, mine too eager. She hesitated, as if the contact had startled her more than the near fall. "Thanks," she said finally. "You're becoming a habit." She tried to sound amused, but her voice didn't land quite right. Inside, her living room looked different in daylight. Books stacked unevenly, a blanket draped over the couch, a half-drunk mug on the table. The air smelled faintly of citrus cleaner and coffee gone stale. She'd always seemed so composed from a distance, but up close, everything about her space felt human, unfinished. I set the box down near the hallway. "New project?" I asked. "Old one," she said, crouching beside it. "I've been meaning to sort through these manuscripts for months." Her hair fell forward as she opened the box, strands of silver catching the light. She brushed them back absent-mindedly, eyes scanning the pages with that focused calm she wore like armor. But when she sighed, something fragile cracked through it. "You okay?" I asked quietly. She looked up, the kind of look people give when they realize they've let a thought escape too far. "I'm fine," she said, but then softer. Just tired of reading other people's words. They always sound braver than mine. It was the first personal thing she'd ever said to me, and she said it like she wished she hadn't. I wanted to tell her that she didn't need to sound brave, that there was something steady in her quiet. But instead, I said nothing. The moment felt too delicate for words. So I just stayed, helping her sort through old papers, laughing once when she found a typo in a published novel and muttered, "See? Even the pros mess up." The way she laughed after that, short, low, almost to herself, made my chest tighten. It wasn't the laugh itself. It was the exhaustion buried inside it. When I left, she walked me to the door. Her hand brushed the frame as if steadying herself. For a second, she looked at me, really looked, and I saw it. The guarded warmth, the ache of someone who'd built walls not to keep others out, but to stop herself from reaching through. "Thank you," she said again. "For the help?" I asked. "For not asking too much." She smiled then, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. I nodded, trying not to let the air between us stretch too long. "Anytime," I said. And as I stepped outside, I caught her reflection in the window, her fingers still pressed against the doorframe, unmoving. Something about the way she stood there, like she wanted to call me back, but couldn't, followed me all the way home. It was a Thursday night, the kind where everything outside feels slightly unreal. Rain whispering against the windows, streetlights flickering in and out like they're thinking about giving up. Clara had texted earlier. A first. "Printer's jammed again. You around?" I told her I'd be there in 10 minutes, but I was already grabbing my jacket before hitting send. When I arrived, she was sitting on the floor beside the desk, surrounded by scattered pages and the quiet hum of jazz from her old radio. She looked tired, her sweater slipping off one shoulder, hair half-tied, glasses perched low on her nose. "Sorry," she said, without looking up. "It's decided to eat Chapter 7. "Violent printer," I said, crouching beside her. That made her laugh, the kind of sound that starts as a sigh. For a while, we just worked, her handing me crumpled pages, me pretending to know what I was doing. Our hands brushed a few times, accidental and unspoken. The air between us felt heavier than it should. Then the radio cut to static, and suddenly the silence pressed closer. She looked at me then, not with the polite neighbor smile, something else, something uncertain. "You shouldn't always come running when I ask," she said softly. I tried to joke. "You make it sound dangerous." "It is," she murmured. "For both of us." Her words hung there, strange and trembling. Before I could reply, her phone buzzed on the table. She flinched, then ignored it. The screen lit up again, Ethan. I didn't mean to read the name, but it burned itself into my mind anyway. She noticed my glance, and her voice dropped to something quieter. "Ex-husband." "Oh, he calls when he remembers I exist." She said it flatly, but her eyes didn't match her tone. The phone buzzed again, and this time she reached over, flipping it face down. Her hand lingered there, motionless. Something in me shifted, a strange mix of protectiveness and something I didn't want to name. She sighed. "I'm sorry. You didn't come here for this." "I don't mind," I said. And it was true, maybe too true. She looked at me then, searching for something in my face. For a moment, it felt like the world had narrowed down to the two of us. The hum of the printer, the rain tapping the windows. Her knee brushed mine. Neither of us moved. "You should probably go," she whispered. "Yeah," I said, but didn't. The air felt electric, the kind of tension that hums before a word, a touch, a mistake. She reached for one of the fallen pages, her hand trembling slightly. "Don't make this harder." I didn't know what she meant, or maybe I did. Either way, I stood slowly, pretending to look for my jacket just to have something to do with my hands. When I reached the door, she spoke without turning around. "Thank you for fixing things that aren't yours to fix." I paused, wanting to say something. "You're not something broken, maybe." But the words stayed where they were born. Outside, the rain had stopped. The street was quiet, shining. I took one last look through the window, her silhouette against the lamplight, still standing by the printer. I almost knocked again. Almost. I found her in the kitchen, standing by the sink as if the faucet itself could wash away her thoughts. Steam curled from the kettle she hadn't turned on yet, and the dim light made the edges of her face sharper, like she was carved from something fragile and unyielding at the same time. "I didn't expect you," she said, voice low. I shrugged, unsure how to answer. It wasn't that I hadn't expected to see her. but that seeing her felt like stepping into a storm I couldn't predict. We didn't sit. We didn't move. Just the quiet, the faint hum of the refrigerator, and the occasional drip from the sink. Finally, she spoke. "Why do you keep showing up?" Her question wasn't accusatory. It was almost a whisper, but it struck somewhere deep. "I don't know," I said honestly. My hands itched to reach out, but I stayed frozen, aware of every inch between us. "I guess, because you're here." She laughed softly, a sound without humor. "That's a terrible reason." I opened my mouth, then closed it. The words felt too heavy, too dangerous. She turned to look at me fully then. Her eyes were steady, but her hands twisted together like they didn't know how to anchor themselves. "Do you ever think about what this is?" I swallowed. "All the time." "Then why don't we?" She paused, exhaling slowly. "Why don't we just stop pretending it's nothing?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because it wasn't nothing. Not to me. Not since the way she'd laughed at Chapter 7, or how her hand had lingered over the printer, or the tired tilt of her head that morning in the rain. The air between us thickened. I noticed the small things, the line of tension at her jaw, the way her eyes didn't quite meet mine, the quiet tremor in her fingers as she adjusted her ringless hand. "I hate it," she said finally, voice barely audible. "I hate that I notice you like this. Her words faltered. "I don't know what I'm doing." That was it. That confession, half-baked, fractured, real, made my chest feel like it could implode. Because for the first time, she sounded unguarded. Vulnerable. Human in a way I hadn't thought she'd allow me to see. "I don't either," I whispered. "And I don't want to stop noticing." She closed her eyes for a second, then opened them slowly. The silence stretched long enough to feel like it was shaping us, bending everything we'd been pretending to understand. Finally, she spoke again, soft and devastating. Maybe I should just stop letting you in, before this breaks me in ways I can't fix." And then she turned away, her back to me, leaving only the quiet and the heavy, impossible ache that followed me to the door. I didn't move. I couldn't. Because the truth, the terrifying, undeniable truth, was that I couldn't breathe right without her in the room. I wasn't expecting to find her in the living room, curled up on the couch with an old photo album open on her lap. The rain had started again, soft at first, tapping the windows in rhythm with my heartbeat. She looked up when I entered, startled, then smiled faintly. "You're persistent," she said. I shrugged, trying not to let the sudden closeness, the way her knees brushed the edge of the coffee table, the way her hair fell across her cheek, make me forget how to breathe. "Whose pictures are those?" I asked, nodding toward the album. She hesitated, fingers tracing the edges of a faded photograph. "Just old memories." There was something in her tone that made me pause. Not sadness exactly, more like a weight she'd been carrying quietly. "Do you want to talk about them?" I asked, stepping closer, though I stayed careful of the space between us. She shook her head slowly, then glanced up at me with eyes that seemed too tired to hold secrets, but did anyway. "I lost someone once," she said softly. "A long time ago. I thought I'd gotten over it, but sometimes it still hits me." Her voice cracked just a little. She looked down at the photo again, lips pressing tight. I swallowed, unsure what to say, but then I saw it. A photo of her younger self, laughing on a beach, someone else's arm around her shoulders. A man, his smile wide, careless. "You loved him," I said, more statement than question. "Yes," she whispered. "And I lost him. Not because of anything he did, because of life. Timing. Fear. I still think about it more than I should." Her confession was quiet, almost hidden under the soft patter of rain, but it shook me in ways I couldn't name. I knelt down beside her, careful not to crowd her. "I think maybe you're allowed to remember, even if it hurts." She laughed, low and bitter. "Allowed? Life doesn't give permission. You just carry it. Alone." Her hands trembled as she turned the page, revealing another photo. This one of a letter, yellowed with age, the ink faded but still legible. She held it to her chest. "I found this after he was gone," she said. Every word, it felt like a lifeline, even if I couldn't take it at the time. I wanted to reach out, touch her arm, offer some reassurance, but I froze. Instead, I just watched, silent, feeling the weight of everything she hadn't said aloud for decades. Her eyes met mine, wide and raw, and she whispered, "Sometimes I wonder if I'm too late for anything else." The vulnerability in her voice, the quiet admission of loss, made my chest tighten so sharply I thought it would break. I realized, in that suspended moment, that everything between us, the awkward glances, the near touches, the unspoken tension, was suddenly reframed. She wasn't just my neighbor. She was someone carrying years of love and absence, and I was dangerously close to becoming part of it. She pressed the letter to her chest again, eyes closing, and muttered, almost to herself, I don't want to be lonely anymore. And in that fragile, unguarded moment, I understood the truth I hadn't dared admit. She had let me in farther than I knew, and I didn't want to leave. The evening came without warning. Not fireworks, not confessions shouted over the wind, just the slow dimming of the day, the golden light spilling across Clara's living room. I was helping her clear the last of the manuscripts, the air thick with paper dust and quiet anticipation. She paused mid-stack, letting her hands rest on the table, shoulders slumping. I realized she wasn't looking at the papers anymore. She was looking at me, really looking. "Why do we keep doing this?" she asked softly, voice almost swallowed by the room's calm. I didn't answer right away. I didn't need to. Because in that silence, the truth was already there between us. In the way our hands had brushed a dozen times that week, the way her laugh lingered in my chest, the subtle gravity of proximity neither of us could ignore. "You don't have to explain," I said finally, kneeling to reach a lower shelf. My hand caught hers for an instant as I passed her a stack of papers. She didn't pull away. She exhaled, a slow, deliberate sound, and sat down. I followed, careful not to crowd her, though the space between us felt impossible to measure anymore. For a long time, we said nothing. The storm outside had softened to a drizzle, the streetlights reflecting off the wet pavement. Our breaths were the only motion in the quiet room. Finally, she tilted her head, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "I think I've been holding my walls too tight," she admitted. "And maybe it's okay to let someone in, even if it's messy." I nodded, letting her words settle around me. "I've been waiting for permission I didn't need," I murmured. She laughed softly, a gentle sound that made my chest ache in the best way. "We're ridiculous," she said, shaking her head. "Yeah," I agreed. "But it feels right." She reached out then, just slightly, her fingers brushing mine. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a declaration. It was a quiet acknowledgement, a gentle bridge over years of hesitation, regret, and fear. I didn't move my hand away, and she didn't either. We sat together like that for a while, just breathing in the shared space. Her forehead leaned against my shoulder briefly, a tiny, imperceptible surrender that carried the weight of everything unspoken. I felt her pulse against me, steady and calm, and it mirrored my own. The manuscripts lay forgotten. The storm outside faded into soft silence. For the first time, the tension between us wasn't a trap or a question. It was a gentle inevitability, earned by countless small moments, near touches, unspoken confessions, and lingering glances. She whispered, almost to herself, "I think I can stay here a little longer." I didn't respond, because there was nothing to add. The moment didn't need words. And so we stayed, hands lightly entwined, shoulders brushing, hearts quietly synchronized. Nothing perfect, nothing fairy tale. Just the two of us, choosing each other, finally, without needing to say it aloud. The room darkened, rain ceased. And in that quiet, fragile understanding, we collapsed into something that felt like love, slow, inevitable, and real. That I still remember the smell of her kitchen that first evening we let ourselves stay close without words. The faint citrus of the cleaner she never finished, the lingering steam from the forgotten kettle, and something uniquely hers that I could never describe. It's funny how small details become monuments once you've shared them with someone you care about. It's been weeks since that night. Not a whirlwind, not a storybook ending. Just quiet mornings, shared coffees, and afternoons spent sorting through books, papers, or just sitting near each other without needing to speak. I've realized that love doesn't always announce itself with fireworks. Sometimes it sneaks in between breaths, in the brief brush of fingers, in the ease of silence. Clara has changed, too, though I think she'd resist admitting it. Her laugh is lighter, less burdened by the ghosts of the past she carries. She doesn't flinch when I touch her hand, doesn't look away when our eyes meet. She still carries that same quiet strength, but now it's accompanied by a subtle warmth, a readiness to share it with someone else. I've changed, too. I've learned that patience isn't just waiting. It's noticing, understanding, and valuing the unspoken. It's letting someone exist fully without trying to fix every shadow they carry. Sometimes, late at night, I watch her from across the room and feel that familiar pull, the one that started when she leaned on her doorframe, the one that made me breathe differently. Only now, it's softer, steadier. I don't feel the desperate ache of uncertainty anymore. I feel grounded, anchored by the trust we've built slowly, imperceptibly, through small moments that could have been missed if we hadn't slowed down. We still have our doubts, our quiet insecurities, our lingering fears of being too much or not enough. But those are no longer walls. They're just part of the landscape we navigate together. And somehow, that makes it real. That makes it ours. As I sit here now, typing this, I realize that what we have isn't about grand gestures or declarations. It's about showing up again and again, noticing the small things, and letting someone in even when it's terrifying. I glance over at her, curled up with a book, glasses slipping down her nose, hair catching the late afternoon sun, and I can't stop the smile that comes naturally. It's quiet. It's imperfect. It's everything. And in that moment, I understand something simple and profound. Love isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's just the quiet certainty that someone's presence changes the shape of your world, and you wouldn't have it any other way. If this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?